What is a pre-flight checklist and is it worth it? Well, in this video, I share my own personal pre-flight checklist, which saves me a lot of time and effort when planning to fly my drone. Let's get started. The first step in my pre-flight checklist before you travel anywhere, and this needs to be done the day before, a few days before, is to check for weather and flight restrictions. I want to check the weather and make sure that it's compatible with my drone, depending on if I'm flying my Air 2S, my Mini 3 Pro, or my Mini 2. Now, a really good website to use, or you can download their app, is uavforecast.com. Now, each one of these drones does have a wind resistance level. Ironically, all three of them are level 5 resistance, but there is a difference between the Mini 2 and the Mini 3 Pro and the Air 2S. The Mini 2 has a range of 18 to 23 miles per hour that you do not want to exceed in wind resistance. But the Air 2S and the Mini 3 Pro are both rated at 23 miles per hour. And I can tell you, both of these drones handle really well. I would have to say that the Air 2S handles even better because it is a bigger drone and heavier drone than the Mini 3 Pro, but they're both excellent. If you have yet to choose where you're going to fly, then in researching for a flight area, I suggest looking for open grassy fields. Now, they don't have to necessarily be in a park, but you definitely want to avoid power lines and anything in general that's going to be overhead that will constrict your flight area. Also, trees, if they're far off in the distance, great. But if they're really close to where you basically have to take off and fly really high to get over the trees and out to where you want to fly, then I would suggest looking for another area. Now, don't forget baseball fields. They're also a good place to fly. Now, if you want to research, there's a couple of different places that I do it. I use the Fly Spots map on DJI app, the Fly app. Also, you can go to uavforecast.com and you can research with their maps. Now, depending on which drone you're going to be flying, which in this case, I'm going to fly the Mini 3 Pro. That's why it's on. You want to make sure the firmware is up to date for both the drone as well as the remote. And that's regardless of using the DJI RC remote or the DJI N1 controller. There's a couple ways to check for firmware. One way is to go to the home screen. And in fact, I have a firmware update it's saying to do here now. And the second, if it's not here, you can still do a push for a check, is to go to the top right-hand corner of your screen where the 3 dots are. Tap on that. Go to About at the very end here, and now you'll see check for updates for your aircraft as well as your RC, your remote control. So you just tap and then it'll tell you if your firmware is current or not, and if it's not, it'll give you the option to update to the current firmware. Now, I also recommend that you make sure your batteries are fully charged. Now, that means the drone batteries as well as the RC remote, and if you're going to be using a phone or a tablet. One thing, I'll give you a pro tip, is I would never get rid of your old iPhones or Android phones. They can always be used with your RC N1 controller to fly your drone. Also, when preparing your drone and your RC remote, don't forget about the SD card. You want to make sure you have enough space on there, or if you like to just reformat it every time, then do the reformat process ahead of time and make sure that SD card is good to go. Also, you want to bring along spare blades, their screws, and the trusty screwdriver. Without this, nothing's gonna change. In addition to that, you want to make sure to have your spare joysticks as well. These are small and easy to lose. We scouted earlier, we've got our place that we're gonna go set up. Now we've got all the equipment. We're gonna go out and set up, get her done. All right. Today is flight day. Welcome to Maidu Regional Park in Roseville, California. First things first, we're going to do a second check looking for any flight restrictions or weather restrictions using the app or the website UAV Forecast. So it's forecast.com or it's the UAV Forecast app. The next thing that I did was I did a once-over of the entire property. I jumped on my one wheel, went around looking for anything out of the ordinary, looking for large groups of people to avoid, whether it be a softball tournament, a soccer tournament. It's just good to know your surroundings. And then, if you want, it's optional, I like to set up a safe space for where I take off and I land. And I use a landing pad that has both blue and orange. So it is double-sided. And I really like this landing pad. It's a hard landing pad. Makes it easy to have a nice, hard, flat, even surface. And then I also grabbed some of these soccer cones at Walmart. And I just make a big circle in one area of the grass here. And that way I have a place to safely land and take off. Next, I'm going to inspect my drone. So today we're going to fly with the Mini 3 Pro. So I got my bag here with all three of my drones. So we'll take the Mini 3 Pro out. Already has a battery in, a remote. First things first, I like to always give the drone a once-over. Inspect your the drone body itself, but more specifically the wings. I want to make sure again that there's no chips, no cracks, fractures, anything like that. Make sure the battery's in secure. Check the battery power level. That's plenty to take off. Then we're going to take that gimbal cover off. So again, the gimbal cover, you put your thumb in the back, pull forward, and it should pop right off. And now we're just going to take a look at the camera, make sure there's nothing obstructing, holding back the camera from being free to move around. Now we can fire up the drone and then the remote. We're going to tap once and then tap and hold a second time. And then the remote, I have the RC, the new DJI RC remote. Obviously, it has a built-in screen. If you're using the traditional N1 controller, then I always recommend that you plug in, whether it be your phone or your tablet, you plug that in first, get it all hooked up, turn on your device, have it unlocked, and then you can turn on your remote and it'll automatically launch the DJI Fly app, which is really swift. Now we're going to get the remote up and running. Press once, press and hold a second time. And we're going to check for any error messages and their corresponding codes if there is anything going on, whether it be the gimbal or it could be, drone overheating, or it could be one of the blades are stuck or obstructed and it knows it can't move. A number of error messages can show up. And there we are on the main flight screen. Again, in order to check for any error messages, you're going to want to go to the top where the pre-flight check area is. It's the third section over from the left. So on the far left is an arrow to go back to the main screen. And then there's, thank you. Thank you, DJI. And then there's what speed mode you're on. It's on normal. By the way, whenever you fire up your remote, it's always going to default on normal, just so you know. So the third one over, this one says takeoff permitted. It can say a number of things. You're just going to tap on that. Obviously with takeoff permitted, there should be no error messages. And yeah, it says pre-flight check, aircraft not in flight, the vision system and obstacle sensing unavailable. And that's fine because you're not flying. So that's okay. So we're good here. Everything looks good. Now, before you go and take your drone over to your landing pad or the spot that you want to take off from, you want to make a couple of fine adjustments. Now remember, part of knowing your surroundings is also looking out for, electrical poles, these light poles that are out here for the field, for the soccer field, any trees, you're going to want to look out for them. And you're going to want to estimate what is the highest object, the tallest object in your area. And once you have that down, in this section, in the pre-flight check section, you can actually adjust your return to home height. So here I have mine set at 196 feet. That's more than enough. These light posts are only about 70, 80, maybe 90 feet tall at the most. You could be 125 feet or set it, as high as you want. If your drone was to lose connectivity, I would definitely want it to return to home, unless you're in the middle of the ocean or a lake and you obviously want it to just hover in place so that you can catch up to it, and then you can bring it down wherever you want. You do have that option to change that. You're going to hit the three dots at the top, and then you're gonna, let me back out. You go to safety, and then you go to advanced safety settings. And under that, you have your return to home. So I'm gonna have it just simply return to home. So with signal loss, it's gonna automatically return to home, but you can also have it just descend right where it's at, or hover and stay in place. So those are your options. The next thing I like to adjust is the obstacle avoidance. So at the very top, you see it says safety, control, camera, transmission. You want to go to safety. And I set my obstacle avoidance to on. And then I also set it to bypass, to where if it comes up to an object, it's just simply going to fly around that object. It's not going to stop. There is an option for that. If you want it to just brake, you can. You can put it on brake. I don't like brake. I just prefer bypass and keep going. That's where I'm at. All right, so now we're going to do a quick flight check before we do a full-fledged flight. So we're gonna do the same sequence. We're gonna take the gimbal cover off first. Remove that. I'm gonna start the drone up. Tap once, tap and hold a second time. Then we're gonna take the remote controller, tap once, tap and hold a second time. As these both boot up, they will connect with each other. What we're gonna do is we're gonna fire off the drone. We're gonna hover 3 or 4 feet off the ground. We're gonna check our pre-flight check area again for any warnings that are there, check them out, see if it's anything that needs to be addressed. If you get a green light to go ahead and fly, the next thing we're gonna do is check our controls real quick and make sure everything is in working order. All right. So in order to take off, I've taught you this before, it's the circle with the arrow pointing up. You're gonna tap and then you're gonna tap the middle button here, tap and hold. The circle completes, you let off, and the drone will launch. All right, so the drone's hovering. The only thing that is going off right now is the obstacle avoidance warnings, which is good. Let's check the pre-flight check. Flight status is normal. It's good. We have 23 drones. We have 23 satellites. That's excellent. All right, so now we're going to do a couple of flight maneuvers in order to check the stability of the drone. So the left stick will rotate the drone clockwise and counterclockwise, staying level. So we'll go counterclockwise towards me. Hi, drone. And that looks good. I'm gonna step away a little bit because of the obstacle avoidance. Okay, so that looks good. Stable that way. Stable clockwise. Now we're going to take the right stick and we're going to push forward, and that's going to advance the drone in that direction. So we'll do that real quick. All right, that looks good. Now go back. All right, that looks good. We'll bring it back to center. So now we're going to do the ascending and descending, and that's going to be the left stick. Going to go up slightly, and we're going to come down slightly. That checks, that looks good. And now we're going to do the banking, bank left, bank right. That's back to the right stick, but I want to face the camera when I do that. I don't want to go towards the camera. Obstacle avoidance. All right, here we go. We're going to bank to the left. Now we're going to bank to the right. Good. And all this time I've been keeping track of the satellites. We're at 24 satellites. That's perfect. That's exactly where we need to be. Next, I would recommend you just take a couple of pictures and a couple of video. Nothing's worse than taking off and getting to an area that you want to take pictures and video of, and you've drained your battery X number of minutes and the camera doesn't work. And then you got to fly back and it's a dud day. So let's take a couple pictures. On the DJI RC remote, it's the top right button. So we're going to switch to camera for photos. We're just going to take a couple of snaps. That looks good, or just one. Now I'm going to switch back to video by tapping the top left button. We're on video. We're going to tap that, and video is recording, and it looks good. Now you want to check your gimbal. So the right stick is going to be for zooming in and zooming out, and the left circle is going to be for pitching the drone's gimbal or the camera up or pitching it down.
So you pull back on it to pitch down, and you push on it to pitch up. Well, now you're ready for your first full-fledged flight. I hope you enjoyed my custom pre-flight checklist, and you'll find it of use in the future. Now, if you want to learn some basics of flying, including how to get your drone back when it loses connection with your remote, you can click or tap up here.